Hello guys and welcome back to the channel. In today's video I will be giving my season predictions, both the 2020 ladder, or my version of it anyway, and the Brownlow medalist and the Coleman medalist in my opinion. Now we'll get right into it with the ladder. In 18th position I unfortunately have the Gold Coast Suns. I think that they'll go back-to-back wooden spooners. Which is a shame because they've got a really good list and I almost feel a little bit sorry for them. They fared quite well last season. I think that they tested a lot of teams. They tested my team, St Kilda, in both matches. They beat the Dogs. They beat Carlton. You know, they were in a lot of games, but their inexperience showed through. I think that they'll win more games this year than they did last year, and they'll be a lot closer in the bigger games against Collingwood and Geelong and whatever. So yeah, I think that they'll do quite well. They'll still finish last, but with Rowell, Flanders, Rankin, King, they're all starting to develop. I think that they'll be in really good stead going forward. In 17th, I have the Sydney Swans, and this is a little bit of a shock. I think that this is their real bottom out year. I think that every team has to go through this to get better, of course, the rebuilding stage. I think that with their loss of experience, McVeigh, Jack, Grundy, etc. They'll really struggle this year, and I think that they'll be well down the bottom of the ladder. But I think that they also do have a list that can get them a premiership as well. You know, not this year, but in coming years, probably the next 5-10 years, they'll definitely be premiership contention again. 16th, I have the Fremantle Dockers, and this is a bit of an odd one for me. I think that they've still got a really good list, but it is inexperienced. With a new coach, I think that they'll struggle a little bit just trying to gel. Obviously, they haven't had a lot of time to develop as a great team with a new coach. Obviously, North Melbourne and St Kilda, they're in a bit of a different boat, and Carlton as well. But I think that Fife and Mundy can't quite save everything, and they will drop down the ladder a little bit for them. 15th, I have North Melbourne, and I think that this is a little bit harsh. They looked really good in the latter half of last year. After Reece Shaw took over, they looked really good, actually. They played some good footy. They were challenging. They were competitive. And yesterday they beat Sydney quite well. I'm recording this on the Tuesday, so yeah, they played quite well in the Marsh series. Obviously took a loss in the first round against the Doggies, but I think that they'll stay about where they were last year, and I think that they will struggle a little bit to climb the ladder, but they'll be really competitive as well. In 14th, I have Carlton. Now they're going to jump up the ladder from 16th last year, and I hope that they do really well. They've got a really good list. They've got an forever developing list. Cripps is going to go to another level, and I think that he will cap off a very good season with a little medal around his neck, but we'll get to that later on. Charlie Curnow will obviously be a bit of a dampener. He won't be able to play this year, so that sucks because he could really have helped Carlton win a few more games. But I think that with David Teague he's really gonna develop this year, and I think that you know, they've got the tools to really shake up this competition a little bit. I don't think they'll make the finals. I think they're probably still a couple of years off, but I think that they will win games that they're not supposed to, and I think that they'll also they'll move up. You'll see a development in Carlton this year. Next, I've got Adelaide, and I think that it's sort of been a long time coming, and I think that this is also where the log jam starts to appear in the ladder. Obviously, it's a really tight competition nowadays, and I think that last year it proved from probably 13th and up, because St Kilda were 14th last year. I think from 13th and up, it was really close. You know, any one of those teams could have made finals depending on results, and I think that's really awesome. And I think that this is where the logjam starts again. But I think Adelaide dropped down a little bit. They've lost a lot of experience. You know, Jenkins, Jacobs, Betts, Cam Ellis-Yeoman. They've lost a lot. They didn't really regain a lot, but I think that they have started to bottom out a little bit. They're cleaning out a lot of people. I think they'll blood a lot of youth this year. So I think with that comes a little bit of a drop-off. Not a Sydney type of drop-off. They're not going to bottom out, but I think that they will lose a few more games than they have previous, but they still will be competitive. In 12th, I have Melbourne, and I think that this is maybe a little bit low. I would love to see them get higher than 12th, but I think after last year, they do have a lot to prove. Of course they do. They finished 17th last year. They had no right to, especially after the year they had previous. But I think, unfortunately, they will drop down. They'll come up, but they won't get as high as what a lot of people are thinking. And they'll be really competitive. They've got a really good list. I would love to see them go higher, and they probably will. They'll prove me wrong. And I think that they will finish in 12th. In 11th, I have got Hawthorn, and I think that this is probably a fair bet, right in the middle of the logjam. I think that they'll miss finals again. And that sucks because they do have a list that can do a lot of damage. And they showed that last year. You know, Alistair Clarkson is a magician. He held GWS to 2 terrible scores last year and he really exploited them. You know, probably deserved to get into the finals, but they left their run a little too late. I think that they'll be in the same boat this year as well. And I'm sorry to all the Hawthorn fans out there that are listening to this, but I think that that is where they will finish. I think that they've got a good group of young talent coming through. And I think that their experience will hold up as well. How their defence will go without Grant Birchall is yet to be tested, but I think that they'll show some promising signs, but just miss out on finals again. In 10th, and a lot of people will call me biased for this, but I've got my team, St Kilda. I think that we've got a really good list this year, and I think that hopefully we can develop well. I don't think we'll make finals, although I would love it, and I think that finals aren't too well off or too far off. I think that with the list we've got, we can do some damage to some teams that aren't quite expecting it, and hopefully we can win some games that we're supposed to this year. I think that we'll beat a couple of finals teams, hopefully, and that's been our issue in the past. We haven't been able to beat many teams that are inside the top 8, and our percentage has also been an issue. I think that we will be really competitive, but miss out on finals by a game and some percentage as usual. In 9th, I've got Essendon, and I think that they also joined the logjam. They were very, very close. They made finals last year, actually, and they were very close to missing out, as were a lot of teams, to making it. And I think that they will just miss out again. They've got a lot of injury concerns down there at Windy Hill, and I think that that will prove a little bit costly at the start of the season. I think that they'll need to overcompensate in the middle and late half of the season, and I think that they will have timed their run a little bit too late, and they'll burn themselves out and miss out on finals, unfortunately, for the Essendon Bombers. To start my top 8, I've got Port Adelaide. I think that this is finally the year that the power reigns supreme. Not reign supreme, they're not going to win the flag, I don't think, but I think that they need to get into the finals. They've got a lot to prove. David Koch, Big Koshy's come out this week and said that if Port Adelaide don't make finals, that Ken Hinkley's done. So they're playing for their coach this year, and it'll really show where they're at, if they are or if they aren't. I think they've got the list to go into the 8. Whether they'll go deep or not is another thing, but I think that they've got the list to make some noise and beat some of our premiership contenders like they did last year. They just unfortunately lost games that they shouldn't have. You know, they lost to teams like North, but beat Essendon. They beat West Coast, but, you know, couldn't beat, I don't know. But they were losing games that they shouldn't have, and but they were winning games that they shouldn't have as well. So I think that they'll finally break the ledger and finish in the 8th, and it'll be really good for everybody at Port Adelaide. In 7th, I have got Brisbane, and I think, unfortunately for them, they will have a little bit of a drop-off. They lost 3 games to finish their season last year, and they went out in straight sets, which isn't too good for them mentally. I think physically they've got a really good list, and I think that won't dwell at all. They've got a really good list. Is it premiership worthy? Not yet. I think they need to build some of their young stars. I think Cam Rayner might have a breakout year this year and really show the competition what he's made of, as well as their midfield as well. I think Eric Hipwood will be a lot better, or at least I hope he'll be a lot better than he has been in previous years, and he'll really make his mark on the competition. And I think they'll finish 7th. They'll have a little bit of a drop-off. I think that a lot of teams might start to figure out what they were doing, but I think that they will prove that they weren't just a one-trick pony last year. They won't do a Melbourne, and I think that Melbourne has really, from what they did, I think that that's really set a benchmark that teams don't want to do that, and I think that that's what Brisbane will try and do. They'll make finals, but not as impressive as last year. In sixth, I've got GWS. Last year's grand finalists, they got absolutely pumped by the Tigers at the G last year. We all remember it. And I think that they'll finish sixth. I think that they'll be thereabouts, but as they have been in previous years, they've finished really well in past years. I think they'll be a little bit lower this year than they have been in the last couple. But they'll have a list. Hopefully they don't lose their stars as early as they did last year, and hopefully injuries can take them deep into September. But I think that they will get beaten by a couple of teams, and a couple of teams might even surprise them as well, and they will fall into sixth position. In fifth, I've got the Western Bullfrogs. That's right, the Doggies will jump up to fifth. And I think that this is sort of what we've been waiting for. They've had promise ever since their 2016 grand final win, but they haven't really ever gotten there. They haven't been that team since then. And I think that this is the year that we finally see what they've been teasing, especially last year. They were putting teams away. That brand of football that they were playing at the tail end of last year, it was the best football I've seen in a while. It was unreal to watch. And I think, unfortunately, they just burnt themselves out a little bit, and they come on to some really good teams, and GWS beat them quite well in the elimination final. So that really put it back in their place a little bit, but I think they'll come out firing. Their midfield will be really good. The addition of Josh Bruce will be really good in the forward line, and that forward line, if that fires, the whole competition's in trouble. So I think that the Doggies will do quite well. The teams with the double chance this year in fourth will be Geelong. They're always there. They finished first last year and really showed that they were a team to be reckoned with. Unfortunately, they were another victim of the prelim elimination, which sucks for them. It's about the 15th year running. Not really, but they do struggle in the preliminary finals. I think they'll finish fourth. They'll show that they're that team again, but that team is getting another year older, and they keep adding in experience. They added in Jack Stephen, Josh Jenkins. They're not young players. They're good players, but they're not young players. And Tim Kelly's loss will affect them, I think, a little bit more than they thought. I think he'll be really difficult to cover, especially if Selwood is out for the first couple of rounds. But I also think that they have the list to put them into the double chance, and hopefully they can break the drought and win a premiership for the first time in 9 years, which will be very, very interesting to see if they can get that done. In third, I have Collingwood. I think that they will finally be that team that we want them to be, and they'll be putting away teams. I think they'll beat Geelong. I think they'll beat GWS. I think they'll right that wrong from the prelim final in that game as well. I think that they have got the list to go a long way. Scott Pendlebury is somehow going to another level. They've got Jaden Stevenson back for the majority of this year. Hopefully he plays a lot of games. They've got a good lot of youth coming through as well. Darcy Cameron, hopefully he gets some good games under his belt, and also Brodie Grundy's on another level as well. And if he can go to another level, we're all in some strife. So I think Collingwood will finish third, and hopefully they can, like Geelong, break that deadlock. Hopefully they can go one better against the Eagles and beat them in the grand final. Maybe, if the Eagles get there. My top two for 2020, in second is West Coast. I think that they are going to be a force to be reckoned with. You add Tim Kelly into that. You add Oscar Allen, he's really improving. You add a lot of young players that are really starting to step up, and you've got a very, very interesting West Coast Eagles outfit. I think they'll be really dangerous at home. Like always, I think they'll be more dangerous even, which is scary. And yeah, I think that they'll go quite well in 2020. Will they make the grand final? That's yet to be determined. There are a lot of teams that are vying for that top spot. Western Bulldogs could get into the grand final for all we know. You know, they're that sort of team. They won it from 6th when they went the whole way. They can do it. They've got to get past Richmond though, and that's the killer. You know, Richmond are they're the team. They can't be stopped at the moment. West Coast and Collingwood and Geelong and everybody's going to be trying to do it, but whether it happens or not is another thing. And I think the West Coast Eagles have got the list to do it like they did a couple of years ago. In first, I've got Richmond. Not much of a surprise there. I think they'll go to another level this year. I don't think that they'll improve much, but I think they'll improve a little bit. Liam Baker, Marlon Pickett, Jesus. They've got some youth, rather, coming through. They've got Sydney Stack, Liam Baker, Marlon Pickett, Dustin Martin. He's not young, but he is just... whenever you've got him in that team, he's an X factor. We all know that. And I think that he will be really, really difficult to stop. And I think that they might go back to back. And it will be really interesting to see what teams come out with this year to try and stop them. They've just got that attractive, fast, accurate, missile type game of football. They just hit everything, and they've just got that want, and hopefully they don't drop off. But if they do, well, there's going to be 17 other teams that are looking to take that title off them. So there is my ladder for the 2020 season. Let me know if you agreed. I'm expecting a little bit of dislikes coming from this because I haven't put your team first. If I could, I would, but I just think that's how the ladder will go. On to my medalists for this year. So my Brownlow medalist for this year is Patrick Cripps from Carlton. I think he's going to go to another level. I think he'll finally have that midfield support that will allow him to play an even better and free-flowing game. Yes, he will still carry as a term. I think he'll still be the leader of that midfield for 40 years. He's that sort of player, and I think that he'll do some really good things. And if Carlton can win more games, like I've predicted them to, finishing 14th, he'll be a really good chance to win the Brownlow. Like a really good chance. If Fremantle slip down the ladder, that means that Fyfe's out of the equation. So I think that he has got the credentials and the potential, and hopefully has the support to be able to do that. And if they can win a few more games, he's going to be right up in that Brownlow conversation. For my Coleman medalist, I've got Tom Lynch from Richmond. This was a little bit of a toss-up for me. At one stage, I was really thinking Josh Shackey from the Doggies. But I feel like if I was to have a Western Bulldogs player, it would be Aaron Norton. If the Doggies can do what they're talking about doing and they jump up the ladder as we're all predicting, he will be a really key factor in that. But I think that Tom Lynch, he showed his prowess last year in the grand final and in the latter parts of the season, and I think that he will go and win the Coleman again. Jack Grewalt's always there, but as he gets older, he will start to be managed a lot more, and that will give Lynch more time at the forefront. And he's just that target, isn't he? He's tall, he's agile, he's quick, he can win the ground ball, he can win the free kicks. His second and third efforts are really good, and I think that that'll take him to a Coleman medal. They are my predictions, both season and ladder predictions for 2020. If you agree, leave us your comments down below. Let me know what you thought as well. If you are new, please like and subscribe. That would be awesome if you could. And I will see you later on. So thank you for watching. Have a great day and goodbye.